Before he passed away, the incredible mind of Stephen Hawking was fixated on some pretty terrifying predictions about our future. He left us with one last really urgent warning. So let's dive into this and really unpack what one of the greatest physicists in history believed was just around the corner for all of us. And there it is. He's not mincing words, is he? Humanity will go extinct within 100 years. That's not some far-off, distant future. That's within our lifetime, or our children's. I mean, think about it. People hearing this right now could actually see it happen. It is an absolutely chilling thought.
So that brings us to the big question, right? Why? Why did he think this? What did Stephen Hawking see that led him to such a grim conclusion? This wasn't some wild guess. It was a forecast, a conclusion he came to by looking at the path we're all on. And to really get the warning, you first have to understand the man.
The thing about Stephen Hawking's life is that it was this incredible paradox. His body was confined to a wheelchair pretty much from his early 20s. But his mind was completely free. It was out there, roaming the farthest corners of the cosmos. And it's that unique perspective, seeing the universe's unbelievable beauty while also seeing humanity's dangerous choices up close. That's the real key to his final warnings. I mean, just look at this timeline. It tells you everything. 1963, he's only 21 years old, and doctors basically hand him a death sentence. You've got 2 years to live. But he didn't just survive, he completely rewrote our rulebook for the universe. 55 years. Just let that sink in. For 55 years after that devastating diagnosis, he kept going. And that gave him this incredibly unique, long-term view of humanity's progress. And of course, our biggest dangers. And the man's genius was just staggering, seriously. Before Hawking, the #1 rule of black holes was nothing gets out, period. But he came along and said, actually, they leak. They slowly radiate energy. We call it Hawking radiation now. And over billions and billions of years, they'll just evaporate. A mind that can solve a puzzle like that, yeah, we should probably listen when he's got something to say about our future. Okay, so let's get to the core of his warning. Hawking figured that, sure, a random asteroid could wipe us out, but the biggest, most likely threats, well, they're the ones we are building ourselves. He basically said we are the architects of our own destruction. And here's the list, the greatest hits of our own self-inflicted apocalypse. You see a theme here? None of these are acts of God or nature. Nope, they're all side effects of our own amazing technology getting way ahead of our wisdom. Let's dig into a couple that he was really, really concerned about. This one is huge. Hawking wasn't worried about AI being flawed or dumb. He was terrified of it becoming too smart. He worried that the moment we create a true general AI that's smarter than us, it's not a tool anymore. It becomes a new life form on this planet, and we wouldn't be the top dog anymore. And what happens then? And right alongside the AI threat was a biological one, this temptation to just redesign ourselves. Hawking predicted that the rich and powerful, they wouldn't be able to resist using genetic engineering to improve themselves and especially their kids. And what you'd get is this terrifying new split in humanity. On one side, you've got us, regular old humans, and on the other, you've got this new class of superhumans. They'd be stronger, way smarter, immune to diseases, and live for who knows how long. Hawking was convinced this would create a two-tiered society where the rest of us, the unenhanced, well, we just couldn't compete. We'd either die out or, well, become a permanent underclass. But it wasn't just the stuff we're cooking up here on Earth that worried him. Hawking also looked up at the stars, into that vast, quiet emptiness, and he saw a huge, silent threat hiding out there. He used this really powerful analogy to make his point. Basically, he said we need to be very, very quiet. Broadcasting our existence into space is like wandering into a huge, dark forest you've never been in and just screaming. He figured a first contact scenario probably wouldn't go well for us, kind of like it didn't for the Native Americans when Columbus showed up. And this way of thinking, it has a name. It's called the dark forest theory. It basically says the universe could be full of intelligent life, but everyone is dead silent. And why? Because in a dark forest full of silent hunters, the best strategy for survival is to stay hidden. Announcing your presence is a gamble you only get to lose once. The logic here is it's brutal, but it's hard to argue with. Imagine two civilizations find each other across the vastness of space. True communication is basically impossible, right?
So you can never be 100% sure the other guy is friendly. And if you can't be sure, you can't risk it. The only logical, self-preserving move is to strike first. And that's why Hawking was so against us actively trying to beam messages out into space.
So, okay, we've got massive threats from the inside, and we've got this terrifying potential threat from the outside. Looking at this whole list of existential problems, you'd think Hawking was just a total pessimist. But he wasn't. He saw one path forward. Just one. His solution was as radical as it gets. We have to leave. We have to get off this planet. It's really just a simple case of not putting all your eggs in one basket, right? Especially when that basket is threatened by runaway AI, genetic civil wars, and a potentially hostile universe. To survive, humanity has to become a multi-planetary species. Of course, colonizing Mars or some other planet, that's a gigantic project. It could take centuries. So Hawking suggested an intermediate step, huge orbiting space cities. Basically, self-contained worlds floating in Earth's orbit. And the upsides are actually pretty practical. You wouldn't have to terraform an entire planet. You could build these things in space, spin them to create perfect Earth-like gravity. You could even move them out of the way of an asteroid. It's a much more manageable first step to becoming a true spacefaring people. But here's the catch, and it is a big one. The problem with this whole escape plan is capacity. The biggest designs might hold, 20 million people? That is a tiny, tiny fraction of the billions of us on Earth, which leads to a really dark question. Who gets to go? Realistically, it would probably only be the wealthiest and most powerful people who could get a ticket, leaving everybody else behind to face the music. So the clock is ticking on Hawking's 100-year forecast. Whether his solution is our ticket to survival or just the start of a whole new kind of inequality, he was sure about one thing: staying here isn't an option, which really forces us to ask ourselves, are we going to rise to this challenge? Or are we maybe the last generation to call Earth our one and only home?